Today's lesson is about isobars and isotherms and analyzing weather maps. An important skill of being a meteorologist is being able to make weather maps for the public to see, and then also being able to analyze the information that is already on a weather map that they might get from computer simulations. One of the skills that we're looking at right now is being able to look at the isotherm trend. Now, an isotherm, this root word right here, actually means amount of heat or pertaining to heat. And so if you look at this map, you'll notice that it's color-coded. And it's color-coded because the different colors represent different temperatures. Now, these lines, there's not really a solid line here, but you can see where the differences are, like the yellow, the green, the light blue, and then the darker blues and purples. Those lines that we could draw at those points represent the isotherms. So we know that in the southern portion of the country that the red and, well, this is actually in Mexico, but the reds, the oranges, and the yellows are actually warmer temperatures. The greens indicate kind of mild temperatures, and then the blues and purples indicate cool and cold and colder. So those are isotherms. Now, another type of line that we have to know how to read on a map is the isobars. Now, this root word right here, bar, almost sounds like the bar in barometric pressure or barometer, and that's exactly what it is. Isobars measure lines of similar air pressure. Now, let me introduce that to you, that concept, because I know that's brand new. And I want you to look at this. Understanding isobars. Isobars show pressure patterns which determines winds. And if you'll notice right here, it says the pressure is 1008 millibars. If you follow your finger around that line, you'll see the number 1008. And what they do is they number these in increments of 4. So every 4 points of pressure, they'll draw a new line. And you'll notice here it tells you that the lines close together show a big difference in air pressure. Expect strong winds. So the closer that these lines are together, like you see here, the 1008, 1012, 1016, these lines are pretty close together. So that indicates very fast winds, strong winds. And down here, it says the lines are far apart when the air pressure is almost even. Expect calm air or light breezes near this high. So you'll notice that there's a great difference between the 1024, the 1020, and then the 1016. There's a big gap in between these lines. So the farther these lines are spread out, the calmer the wind, the closer they are together, the stronger the wind. And generally you'll notice around a low pressure area that the winds are a little bit faster. Those isobars should be a little closer, whereas with the high pressure it's a little bit more spread out. Now, to look at our example on a diagram of a weather map, if we notice right here with South Carolina, if we wanted to answer the question of what's our current pressure, then we would notice that there's 2 lines nearest us. There's this one, 1016, and that line, if you follow it through, actually runs through South Carolina, at least the northern portion of South Carolina. And then the next closest one is 1020. Now, if we were to ask what kind of pressure at all runs through South Carolina, and we had to guess, we'd probably say around 1016. If we were to ask about maybe Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, maybe it would be around 1018, because that's between 1016 and 1020. So you just want to be careful if you're looking at a multiple choice test that you really look at those numbers carefully and make the best educated guess on what the pressure would be. Now, I want you to notice these fronts right here. When we have this cold front and we have a warm front, when you see like that, it's almost, if you remember that these triangles kind of act like teeth, it's almost like a dog with teeth trying to chase the warm front. And so as it's chasing it around, this high pressure is feeding, or this cold front is feeding into this warm air. And what it does is create that counterclockwise motion that produces low pressure and consequently a storm. So anytime two fronts meet, specifically the warm and the cold, when those two meet, you always have low pressure. And then you'll notice over here this high pressure around 1024 millibars. And then you'll notice that these lines are very spread far apart. So that indicates calm winds. But look how tightly packed these isobars are. And so that indicates that this is a really ferocious storm. And that means that this is a storm that's going to pack really strong winds and probably a whole lot of precipitation. All right, the next thing we want to start looking at are the weather trends. I mentioned in another video that the fronts generally cross the United States from west and track toward the east, and I just want to show you an example of that. And I want you to keep your eye on this cold front as I flip through the next few pictures. So right now you see the cold fronts running through Nebraska and Colorado. In the next you could see it New Mexico and Kansas and Iowa. In the next Oklahoma, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. And then it's starting to come toward us. That's Arkansas, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. And it didn't make much motion there, but it's still tracking forward through Tennessee, Kentucky. And now you can see it's coming over to Alabama, the top portion of South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. And now you can see it's right on top of South Carolina. So again, what you're noticing is that fronts generally move from west to east. So just to remember that they travel in this direction, from west to east. Very important to remember that. All right. Now, I want to conclude by talking to you about the different types of weather maps that we have available on weather stations such as weather.com or weatherunderground.com. And you can see that we have the picture of the United States. All of these maps were taken from the same day. And this is called a current surface map. And you can see that there's some little green patches for rain. And you can see a little bit of cloud cover and some lows and highs. They're showing you the fronts here. And then if we look at the current temperatures, this is where you're looking at isotherms. Remember that tells you the temperatures in various areas. Over here, this is called the Doppler radar. And so that picks up precipitation that might be in the area. So you can see some more notable green, which indicates rain and some clouds. And then now we're looking at the visible satellite. So now you can see a lot more of those clouds. So these are all types of maps that meteorologists use and that we can use to kind of get a handle on what the weather's going to be like in our area. And that does it. I hope you learned a lot about analyzing maps and understanding a little bit about isobars and isotherms.